This episode is brought to you by Bleacher Report. How do you follow sports? From college football to the NBA, Bleacher Report brings you the latest news, live scores, and epic highlights from your favorite leagues, teams, and athletes, all in one app. Dive into exclusive shows hosted by your favorite athletes and original Bleacher Report series with breaking news, rumors, and predictions all season long. Download Bleacher Report to personalize your coverage.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick. You're joining Josh Bowe and I. It's just after 10 p.m. on Saturday night, December 21st. The Dallas Mavericks just defeated the Los Angeles Clippers in their second of a pair of games in Dallas, where they won this one, 113-97. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. We were talking before the show. One thing I will say about my personal life is that my children really have a knack for only having horrible things happen when the Mavericks don't play. The last time I missed a game for like kid sickness or something like that was when Luka scored 73 points. So we've like made it a year. And so I was up all night last night, which was pretty funny because I was so pissed off, obviously, after the first Clippers game for like basketball adjacent stuff. It's nice to see the Mavericks bounce back. You know, Derek Harper had more or less told us that he thought that Kyrie Irving was going to play tonight. Playing pretty interesting. Maybe we'll talk about it in the second half of the show, but doesn't really pertain to the game at the moment. Dallas came out with Kyrie, and they looked, as to be expected, they looked a hair sharper. Shots didn't really fall for them in the first quarter. Kind of an ugly game to a degree. And then the Mavericks just sort of slowly ground the Clippers down, and it was a very kind of other side of the coin game compared to what happened on Thursday. What did you think, Josh?
Yeah, definitely a much better bounce back effort. It's hard in the NBA to lose two straight games to the same team when you do these little mini series, like historically, like dating back to whenever this started popping up on the schedule. Like it's always the most likely scenario when you play a team two times in a row is you go 1-1, because that's just kind of how NBA regular season basketball is. So it was expected that, you know, I felt pretty good about the Mavericks winning this game just for that reason. And then of course, Kyrie being back just kind of at least got more people back into like their rung on the totem pole. That helped as well. No Luka, obviously you felt no Luka tonight too, you know, yeah. Even though the Mavericks had 8 players in double figures, like, there were numerous offensive possessions where like just nothing was happening, and you're like, okay, that's, you know, these are the Luka possessions for sure. But yep. They got just enough, and then most importantly, their defense was a night and day turnaround from the other night. Night and day. Everything they struggled with in that first game against the Clippers, pick and roll coverages, staying attached on the perimeter to their scorers, their paint defense, their ability to battle Zubats. All of that was significantly better in this game. Like, that's the thing that jumped out to me the most. And especially, you know, I don't know if we want to talk specific players, but like this was one of Derek Lively's best games of the season.
And that's what I'm glad you mentioned it, because I wanted to lead off with that. So the funny part about Derek Lively is, for a guy who was drafted where he was, which was 12th, we have some preposterous expectations for him as a fan base and as a podcast. And that's realistically because he has managed to learn how to play within an NBA structure. I mean, he hasn't even played total games playoff combined. He's got to be hovering under 100 total games or around there. And, you know, that comes after a complicated, high school situation and college situation where he really hasn't ever really been a full-time starter to start the year in several seasons is on the teams that are best for him. And so he just shows little by little, and we've seen some developmental regression, I think is fair, during some games. And so when you watch a game like the Mavericks played the other night, where both Lively and Gafford could not stay connected to Zubac at all and really got their ass kicked, I found myself watching Lively in the first half and just sort of like gleefully making noise while on the playback when we were watching the game live with some fans. There was James Harden committed 7 turnovers tonight, and Lively is a big factor in that. Like Harden is so good about drawing out the string and making the pass at the right moment. And there was a play, it was a bounce pass. I remember this specifically because Derek Lively got his hands on a bounce pass to Zubac. They're on the left side of the floor. Harden kind of gets all the way in and then pulls back out to kind of a little bit above the short corner area and makes a bounce pass to Zubac, who's waiting under the basket. Lively had helped and recovered in time. And recovered in time to get a hand on the ball. I don't necessarily know if he got credited for the steal. It ultimately doesn't matter. But it's the sort of play big men, like we talk about this all the time with big men on offense. Like, you want your hands up high. Big men are not great at catching the ball at their waist. And so the fact that Jim Harden made that pass was pretty amazing. But the way he Lively was the one responsible for I'm pretty sure it was Lively getting a hand in disrupting. It's the sort of defensive play that nobody except a hardcore basketball fan is going to care about. But it's the sort of little thing over the course of a 48-minute basketball game over an 82-game season where you just got to go, good Lord, this guy is good at stuff.
Yeah, that play was tremendous. The one that stuck out for me was his block against Norman Powell. The one where he had 2 blocks, but this one, honestly, it might have been the best block I've seen this season that wasn't like blocking a dunk attempt.
Sure.
Norm's driving to the rim in a pick and roll, and he kind of scoots by Lively, who had kind of jumped out, and he kind of got around Lively. So he's got not necessarily Lively on his hip, but he's got Lively behind him. He knows Lively's behind him, so he goes from the right side of the rim, and he goes underneath the rim. Like all good scorers are taught, go underneath the rim and use the rim to protect you from the shot blocker. And Lively paced and timed his jump so that he could swat him when Powell came up on the other side of the rim. He tracked it the whole way. Didn't get out of position, didn't foul. It was, you don't see veteran big shot blockers make that play. And it was just an incredible block. You just don't see, I feel like 8 times out of 10, that play ends with the player just scoring at the rim or getting fouled and ending up in a clean block for the Mavericks and for Lively. It was incredible. And yeah, I know some in the chat, he had another block where he volleyball spiked it all the way out to half court, which was visually more exciting. But from a basketball kind of nerd, just perspective, that block against Powell, where Powell is using the rim, going under it and going up on the other side on the left side and Lively still being able to block it, was one of the best defensive plays he's made. I would put that on his career highlight reel already. Mm-hmm. I know he's only been in the league for 18 months or so. It was a tremendous play. It just emphasized how otherworldly he was defensively in terms of he was just everywhere. He was everywhere. He rebounded well. He guarded the pick and roll well, guarded the rim well. He had 2 steals. Like you said, he was instrumental in the Mavericks collecting 12 steals. The Clippers had 17 turnovers. He was just everywhere. And he kind of played he played up in the pick and roll. He played back. He played at the level of the screen. He rotated well. It was just, and then to make matters even better, I felt like the Mavericks backline defense, when Lively did step up in the pick and roll to meet ball handlers, I felt like the backline was awesome. Especially, like I said, the Mavericks had 12 steals, and a lot of those came from, I think, Lively or Gafford stepping up to the ball handler and pressuring them, and then the backline defenders getting a steal, whether it was PJ Washington or Klay Thompson had a couple of those as well. He had 4 steals. I just thought defensively, the team was just locked in on a chain from pretty much opening tip to the end of the game. Couple, bad spurts, maybe a little bit in the third quarter, but I mean, this was one of their best defensive games.
I'm glad you actually mentioned that third quarter because it was interesting to, frankly, in game, really frustrating to watch happen live because that game honestly could have been over with earlier, but the Mavericks rebounded from it. But anyway, the game kind of gets to about a 5-point game in the third quarter, in no small part because
they stopped doing all the stuff that they were doing well.
Well, so
a little bit.
One of the if Lively has a weakness, and of course he has weaknesses. He's a second-year center, but his for everything that he gives on the offensive end for rebounding, just like using his athleticism to go get balls and get the Mavericks second chance looks, he has to, on defense, figure out how to use his body and go get rebounds. He only had 6 defensive rebounds in the game. Zubac had 4 offensive rebounds. And there was a multi-possession cycle where, and I'm probably saying his name wrong, it's my fault, guys, where Zubac just kind of used his body and positioning and understanding of angles and rebounds better to catch Lively off guard. And that kind of got the cycle going for the Clippers. But you live and you learn. As evidenced by the first half and the fourth quarter, the Mavericks have a pretty darn good idea of what they're doing. And Lively has the ability to figure stuff out within a game. I mean, to me, it's objectively funny to me that the 2 centers Lively has had problems with in the NBA are not Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic. It's been Kristaps Porzingis and Zubac. Like, those are the 2 guys who I've watched in matchups and been like, what the shit? And it just, because maybe it's because I sort of lowered my standards because Jokic is just so good. But again, I'm really impressed with his defensive effort and willingness to improve and try different things. And he doesn't get beat the same way very often. So I think over the course of his career, I wouldn't be surprised if his defensive rebounding improves. But, like I just said, his offensive rebound and offensive effort were a key reason why the Mavericks offense was able to hum so well. There was one opportunity where he gets the ball in a pick and roll, and was it a pick and roll? Where he's so open under the rim, I don't think he realized he could have dunked it, and he just passes it out the backside to Kyrie. This is really something.
He had 5 assists, hum, by the way, 11, 11, 5, 2 steals, 2 blocks.
And he had a couple of makes on the offensive end where one, he recovered a loose ball after he had made a post move and then did just a classic big man drop step lay-in that was so pretty. He had a little bit of a push shot that was really something. I don't know. We're gushing about his game, and I think that's, it's a little bit of Saturday night content in December, but I like seeing the way the guy bounces back, I think is where I am.
Yeah, for sure. And then Gafford also played much better as well. 13.6 rebounds, 2 blocks as well. 4 or 5 from the field, which is a big for him because for whatever reason, well, for multiple reasons, he doesn't shoot the ball very well against the Clippers since he's been traded to Dallas. I think I saw our man
he missed the dunk.
I know. I think I saw our man Panda Hank say he posted this, and I think he got this from the TV broadcast. So, apologies wherever this came from, but I think I saw entering tonight since Gafford's been, I think, traded to the Mavericks. He's shooting 46% against the Clippers,
which is so funny. It's 30% lower than his average.
Right. And he was 4 or 5 tonight, which big deal. And it's part of the Clippers defensive scheme. They do a really good job trying to take away lobs. And Zubac is that good. He's a really good center. And also this Clippers team, this version of the Clippers, they are a gritty team. They were so much about the star power with Kawhi and Paul George, and then they had James Harden. They've kind of transformed themselves into a dirty work team with Zubac, with Derek Jones Jr., now with Chris Dunn, with Batum, Amir Khan. They just got all these guys that are willing to kind of muck it up.
Yep.
And the Mavericks able to survive, go 1-1 without Luka in both games with, no Kyrie in the first one. The Clippers aren't a pushover. I don't know if they're going to be a plus 500 team, above 500 team the whole season. Like maybe it kind of runs out on them because they just don't have the horses offensively to I don't know, to keep up in games like tonight. But they fight the hell out of you for 48 minutes. Like Ty Lue's coached this team up pretty well, and they've got some really tough contributors on the defensive side of the ball. So, the Mavericks struggling on offense for 2 straight games. They hit 40% of their threes, which was nice. But I'm not surprised both of these games were a little ugly to watch. And I think it's a credit to the Mavericks that they're able to play through some of these games. Like Kyrie shot 6 of 25 from the floor, and I never felt like the Mavericks were going to lose this game. It goes back to what we've been talking about since opening night, which is this roster is literally built different. Like it is made to not have to rely on the stars all the time. And just Kyrie's presence, 6 assists, 1 turnover, that just made all the difference, even though he wasn't making shots.
Yeah, he was really fun. All right, so we're about halfway through here. We're going to take a quick break. For those of you who have been listening to the show for some time, I want to remind you here, guys, we have a wonderful sponsor at the moment, a company called Body Spec. They approached us about a month and a half back, and we think they're a good fit for our show. Just because of the service that they offer. What they do is they provide what's called a DEXA scan. It's a full body composition scan, and its goal is to help you understand what's going on with your body. You can weigh yourself on the scale, you can look at yourself in the mirror, but there's things you just can't know without seeing inside your body. And, for people like Josh and I, we both work the equivalent of desk jobs. We're older men relative to, I think the average age of a person who watches an NBA game. And it's really an interesting product in that it can help you, give you kind of a baseline of where you are if you're considering getting into shape, if you're a fitness nut and you want to see if you've actually made a difference. You don't want to pay for something super expensive. It's a great way to learn about where you are in your fitness journey. If you'll click in the show notes, there's a link to a bodyspec.com link, and you can see what I'm talking about. You can go there. You can use our special promo code PODMAVS45 in all caps. That gets you $15 off a single scan. This is a great idea for a gift. It's a great idea to kick off kind of your New Year's resolution. And with, understanding that Body Spec's competitors charges as much as $150 for something like this, you're going to be getting real information at a fantastic price. Again, if you'll consider visiting bodyspec.com in the show notes, that's both on audio and on the YouTube. You can see it in the show notes. It would really help us. Sign up do something good for yourself. And it also helps Josh and I if you consider supporting the show here. We talked a little bit about what Josh and I experienced. And I think probably during Monday night's game, we might have a little bit of a longer conversation about what we learned in our respective scans and whether or not it's actually triggered Josh and I to do anything different. I have a bit of a preview there because it's the holidays. Thus far, it's not really triggered me to do that much different, but it's something to look forward to. So again, we're going to insert some ads here. Thanks so much for hanging out and letting us do some business. We will be right back.
If you're like me, you're looking for an edge for sports betting. So when I heard Masterclass had a new class on beating the odds, taught by the pros who have made millions, I had to check it out. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. Novice bettors are at a huge disadvantage, with most losing early and fast. Before, the knowledge needed to level up was hard to come by. Now there's Masterclass, and the classes really make a difference. 88% of members feel that Masterclass has made a positive impact on their lives. I use it, and you should too. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. And Masterclass always has great offers during the holidays, sometimes up to as much as 50% off. Head over to masterclass.com/Blue Wire for their current offer. That's up to 50% off at masterclass.com/Blue Wire. That's masterclass.com/Blue Wire. And remember, all sports betting involves risk, and you're responsible for complying with all sports betting laws in your jurisdiction.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
All right, friends, thanks for hanging out with us. If you have not subscribed to the show yet on YouTube, please consider doing so. We are marching up our YouTube numbers just bit by bit. I have an in-season goal, I don't know if it's even possible, of 5,000 subscribers. You know, Josh and I got into the YouTube element of this a little bit later than everyone else because he and I each have faces for radio, and we did not really want to do the video thing until we realized that it actually wasn't that hard. If you're listening on an audio stream, please consider subscribing to the show, leave comments, shoot us emails, send me DMs on Twitter. I really like when people let us know that the show is important to them. All right, what else should we talk about? We did a Derek Lively love fest that was well earned.
Yeah, I mean, they had 8 players in double figures, which is the most this season. That Grimes fourth quarter was something. What did he have? 14 points in the fourth quarter alone.
Shout out to Mark Followell for really trying to make horrendous nicknames stick. He's having a really good time when the Mavericks players are going off. Grimes is so fun in that I think he's sneakily really important to this team. I mean, yeah, you know, he goes and scores like kind of crazy, but the rebounding, the defense, like he just is. He's a sneakily important cog. Him and Najee Marshall are like, that's an incredible. Like the Mavericks top 8, if you were to really roll out their top 8 right now, we're kind of approaching the limits of what I had hoped on the higher end of my scale as far as expectations from guys like this.
Yeah, the amount of contributors they have, like, I'm trying to think of like who else in the league in terms of being able to roll out 8. I mean, so 8 guys tonight, missing Luka, so that's 9, because I don't think they played anyone. You know, they didn't really play anyone that they overextended, you know, because of Luka. Like, you know, it's not like Gortman got a bunch of minutes tonight. Like, they just played their main guys a little bit more. Like, Dinwiddie played 29 minutes when he'd probably play like 15 with Luka, but he'd still play. Like, so you add Luka, so that they have like 9 legitimate rotation players. Like, you're thinking like what, OKC and Boston.
Cavaliers
in terms of just like the amount, like not necessarily.
The Rockets have a ton.
Yeah, the Rockets have a ton of guys,
and I also hate the fucking Grizzlies. Also have a ton of dudes, but the differentiating factor in, you know, the Thunder have an MVP candidate. The Celtics have a top 9, which is to die for.
Yeah, the Celtics are unmatched there.
But other than those two teams, the Mavericks have the best player. And that's the differentiator when you're like, all right, these are top 7 plus. Oh yeah, we have Luka Doncic,
who counts for like 5 players. You know,
which is pretty sick. And you know, I had somebody made a comment on the YouTube where it's just like, why are you and Josh focusing on the Mavs being a lot better this year? Of course, they're a lot better this year. And it's like, you go look at the record and you're like, well, of course they're still in the 5th seed, which is exactly where they were. I mean, they're in the 4th seed now. But it's like they're within a ballpark of where they were a year ago this time. The difference is, at least this is my opinion on where the difference is, the Mavericks started to stall at this point last year, and they did not really get it back until they made the trade for the new guys. And then that gave them a little bit more life. You know, Luka missed a number of games in January where Kyrie was just bananas for like a 5 or 6 game stretch, which really held them afloat. But the Mavericks have an opportunity in front of them here for the rest of the year and heading into January to notch, you know, 2 wins for every loss. Like they just do. And that's what made me so mad the other night, not just the specific element of the Mavericks' terrible pick and roll coverage, but it's just, you know, we keep clamoring for them to be a top 3 seed, and they're just not quite there. But they could be. They could be within a week. I mean, it's like they're a game behind, or they're a half game behind the Rockets. They're a game and a half behind Memphis. You know, I think they're 4.5 games behind the Thunder. I'm not really thinking number 1 seed, but it's like you look at these guys and you look at the ability to do what they do when they're humming. And even when things aren't humming, and it's like, gosh, they're a good basketball team. And it's really nice.
Yeah, and I mean the thing that we talked about in our last show, the big difference is the records are within range of each other from this year to last year at this point of the season. But the data behind the records is not. This is a significantly better team. I mean, last year's team at this point of the season had like a 1.1 net rating, and this year's team is like 7 or close to 7, or I can't remember if they're still above 7. But either way, last year's team at this point they were out winning their play. Like their record was better than what they were playing. This team, the record is worse than the way they're playing. Like they're 18-10, but they should probably be 21-8. Again, we go back to those 4 losses where they lost all those clutch games in a row. You go 2-2 in those games instead, and they're 20-8 or whatever instead of 18-10, and they would be, they would, be even closer, a little bit within striking distance of the Thunder for the 1 seed in the West. So I think that stuff just takes care of itself. Like, because they haven't since that losing streak, they've been pretty consistent with how they've been playing, and they've been picking up wins. Like, the record will take care of itself if they keep playing the way they've been playing. Like, it just will. And with Luka, the main thing is, can Luka stay healthy? And that's a big thing. It's pretty obvious now that his heel injury is legitimate. I know that there was some talk, especially during our podcast about like, were they just trying to give him an extra day of rest?
I definitely think they want him to play in the Christmas Day game.
Yeah, so for sure. They'll try to do everything they can.
String, yeah.
But obviously, like, it's pretty clear that this wasn't just I don't know if we're at the point of this is like, oh, if this were the playoffs, he'd be playing. Like, I think that was a general sense, but I don't know. He hasn't practiced. He hasn't played in 2 games. And I think it's a little bit more, I don't think like serious, like he's going to miss a ton of time, but I think like it's pretty obvious that wasn't just a, ho-hum injury. Like it's legitimate enough, but if he could stay healthy, like, I don't know, like I feel like we still haven't seen the peak version of this team, and the numbers are still really good because the first 2 months, Luka didn't look right because he wasn't playing. He wasn't healthy.
He had five. He started shoot. So let's be fair here, because our guy Matthew and Mavs Moneyball occasionally wants to murder us because of this. The way this went was for Luka's first 5 games, he shot the ball horribly. Doesn't matter why, but he did. Like, he was under 40% for the first 5 games of the year from the floor. Luka Doncic, that's pretty impressive. Then they essentially he played a little bit, and then he
missed that week.
He missed that. It was like the 5, like 7. It was like they missed 5 games, came back, missed a game, and then he's more or less, he just hasn't gotten into what I would describe, other than a 3-game stretch where he won Western Conference Player of the Week. He hasn't hit like any sort of regular flow. And that's where it's like, okay, this is what Luka's done for the past 10 games, where he's played all 10 of those games in a row. Because he's already missed 8.
Right. Like, they haven't had a stretch where he's basically, he's basically had a week where he's felt like he's at full strength, normal looking Luka. Yeah. And the rest of the season, he's either been underperforming because of his health, or he's been missing games. And when I say underperforming, of course, like, the stats are like, underperforming for Luka is still like an all-star player. Right. It's just, his shooting numbers weren't at the level that he probably,
they've normalized entirely.
Yeah. Right. And then
and then he 2 more games.
And then he comes back and he looks great. And then now he's out again. So again, they still haven't had a sustained stretch where everyone is here. Like, Lively missed games, PJ missed games, Luka's missed games. I feel like they've had maybe 1 week where everyone's played, and that was the week where Luka won Player of the Week, and the Mavericks looked like the best team in the world for like 5 games. And so, like, again, they don't even know if we've seen them really at their peak, which is kind of scary to think about. And it just goes to show the roster construction was so good. Like, Najee Marshall can not miss threes after not making threes for 2 months. Like, that's pretty amazing. Grimes has been great. I got to shout out Spencer Dinwiddie, because and this is a compliment, He is on one incredible free throw grift streak right now. That dude loves to draw contact and loves to get fouled more than I like to eat Taco Bell, which is a very impressive feat if you really want to put this into perspective, because I will put down some Taco Bell.
That's gonna have to be an off-season topic.
I know.
Bell. I didn't know you were I didn't know you were a Taco Bell connoisseur.
Oh, I am for sure, definitely. This dude's free throw rate entering tonight was 40%. It's the highest number. It's his highest. It would be his highest free throw rate for a full season since 2020.
Give us a definition of what free throw rate means.
That is number of free throw attempts per field goal attempt. So it's the highest it's been since 2020.
40%?
What?
So he's 40%? at 40%?
Yeah, 40%.
So, all right. So let's just do some math here. That means if he takes 5 shots, he's getting fouled on 2 of those.
Right.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
What's Luka's free throw rate?
I don't have it up, but it's probably it might be lower than that.
Like, they're just I'll filibuster for a second. You go look. I always love looking at this because if you go look at Charles Barkley's numbers, Charles Barkley had a 71% free throw rate one year. Where it's just like you're looking at this going, wait, what? And it was a Philadelphia year, and it's just so funny to look at some of these.
Luka's at 31%. He was at 37% last year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The highest Luka's ever had was about 48. So
which is nuts. So yeah, we're talking lead guard numbers here is what we're talking about.
Yeah. And you watch him like tonight. I felt like he shot. How many official field goal attempts did he have? He had 13. I feel like he tried to legitimately shoot like 5 times tonight. Mm-hmm. And again, this is the game. He sees the openings and he's attacking. He's attacking, and he's also like the way he's contorting his body. He's trying to get fouled, not try to put himself in position to make a shot. Which that's okay, because that's the game. Like every successful player and the offensive player in the NBA is trying to get fouled a bunch. And he went to the free throw line 6 times, and this is like your 3rd string guard that's supposed to come off the bench. Like it's pretty remarkable. Like that's a low key, really valuable skill for this team that Luka's not in, Kyrie's not feeling it. You get 6 points from hit, like your guard from free throws, 6 free throw attempts. Like having one of your bench guards be able to get to the free throw line this much, like that's huge, because you don't expect your bench guards to be able to do that. And free throws are like the most consistent points in basketball besides layups and threes. Like we talked about, it's layups, threes, and free throws. Like that's what every team wants. And they got a guy that can come off the bench and he just farts his, I mean, that's kind of disrespectful, but he just gets his way to the free throw line so often. And it's just, and I think what's amazing about it is it's not like he's doing the like stop and go herky jerky, leaning into people, kicking his legs out, like leaning into defenders. And then, defenders are fouling him and they're biting on his pump fakes and stuff. And it was just remarkable to watch. Like he had very little interest in trying to make shots tonight, but he had a lot of interest in trying to get fouled, and it worked. He was a +11. And again, this is not disrespectful. He's playing the game, man. Like that's the game. Like I personally don't like that being in the game. Like I think games would be a lot more fun to watch if defenders had, more.
The Mavericks draw a lot of free throws. Like they
do.
They draw a lot of free throws. And that's why I don't really complain about like foul calls anymore, because I'm like, the Mavericks get fouled a lot.
They're good. I mean, that shows again the roster vision. They have guys that can do stuff that aren't reliant on their stars, and they have got guys that can do stuff with the space. Like this is not your 2020 Mavs, your 2021 Mavs, where it is Luka and a bunch of guys that can spot up and shoot. And if you take away the spot up shots, they got nothing. Like every role player on this team, if a defender is taking away their spot up look, they seemingly have a plan B. And this is the first Mavericks roster in the Luka era where all these role players seemingly are good at the plan B. Spencer had 6 free throw attempts. Grimes had 3 himself in 25 minutes. Although 3 of those were all on one. He got fouled on a 3-pointer, but like, I don't know. It's impressive to watch this team's versatility, both defensively and offensively. and it's just it's a pleasure to watch when they're able to kind of get rolling in the way that they should be.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about one more thing, and then we'll go.
Yeah. I know. I talked a lot there.
No, that's perfect. This is what this show's about. But I wanted to talk about it the other day, but then the Mavericks got smoked, and Luka didn't play, and there wasn't really anything to talk about other than me being mad at the Mavericks. Look, man, I'm a pretty cynical guy by the time I'm 40. I am. There's a lot to be cynical about. And sports is one area where cynicism can just reign. And I just think this is so cool. Earlier in the week, Luka Doncic and his, team of people that he works with unveiled the Luka Doncic Foundation and a 200-page report about inside youth basketball and what their mission statement is and what they want to do. And it's really quite remarkable. And I say this because I don't want to be overly critical, but quite candidly, player foundations in enough situations during my times watching sports have been used almost primarily as like tax funneling vehicles for the players. You funnel money in, you funnel money out, you hit some IRS marks, and you get to consider yourself a foundation. And what Luka is doing, or at least what Luka and his team are doing together, is so above and beyond what I have seen from a entry-level splash from a player foundation. I mean, this report is, again, 200 pages. They went and interviewed like 1,500 children from around the world about basketball. And, it's so funny. Like, Luka gave an interview to the New York Times, and he just doesn't like talking to the media because the interview to the New York Times sucked because he just doesn't like to explain himself. He loves basketball, and therefore he wants his love of basketball to be communicated out through his actions, not through his words. And some of the quotes that we are getting that are from Luka are so verbose that they have to have been in another language and then translated to English. Because, Luka just says stuff. It's like, oh, this is amazing. This is amazing. I love it. Basketball, amazing. And then you can tell when he's speaking in Slovenian or in Spanish, he's just more emphatic. And I just find this really neat. Meta Robinson, shared her very first post with Mavs Moneyball, talking about how like basketball is just so personal to her, and this is why she wants to continue writing. It's just a really lovely post from 2 years ago, and she made a comment, just about why like what Luka is doing is of such interest to her. I'm nudging her both on a podcast and in Slack I hope she covers this a little bit more. And I urge all of you to kind of look into it if you're at all interested. There's Luka Doncic Foundation. It is literally lukadoncicfoundation.org. You can go and look around. You can see what he's talking about. I mean, I have a child in basketball. Like, this is something that just perks my interest from multiple angles. And I don't know, just wanted to sort of do my little part and draw interest to it. And that's what.
No, that's cool. And Lord knows that youth basketball in this country could use, another set of eyes to help with it. Like I reference this a lot, especially talking to people about like players, like, the NBA season being too long and like what's wrong with the regular season. And to me, like my white whale is just this. I'll never get that ESPN story that Baxter Holmes did in 2019. I cannot believe that story is 5 years old now, about like the youth basketball epidemic in terms of like these players are entering the NBA with like broken bodies because just youth basketball is kind of out of control. So for Luka's foundation to be like focusing, I need to read more into it. I don't know what exactly his mission statement is in terms of what they're trying to solve, but just having someone, to help with youth basketball, which can be kind of the Wild West with AAU scenes and all this stuff, like having, just someone put some effort and care into it, trying to hopefully take care of some players and get them on the right path. And it take, hopefully that's part of it, and I'm kind of hopeful that that's kind of why he's getting into this. Is his first real big push, and especially like this is like not Luka is obviously he does work with the Mavs Foundation and does a lot of charity work, but he's very private dude. He has not gotten himself out. He does not get himself out there a lot with non-basketball stuff. I mean, this is basketball, but I mean, like, specifically his role on the Mavericks as a player. So for his first like big kind of off the court thing to be this, I think speaks a lot to kind of what he's interested in and maybe what he's trying to accomplish. And it's just cool. It's cool to see.
Yeah, it's and I work for a nonprofit. So it's like foundations have specific guidelines and rules and things you have to achieve. Otherwise you have to fold. Like you only are allowed to like pursue a legal status for a certain number of time and you have to do certain things. Otherwise the IRS shuts you down. And like, this is just such an explosively interesting start. And you hit kind of the nail on the head of like what problem is the foundation trying to address? And it's youth interest and love in basketball. And it's just fascinating to me. I don't know. This was a good game to talk about it after because that was a kind of a lovely basketball game. Mm-hmm. I think that's it. So I'm not going to record a secondary show tonight. I am gassed. Today's Saturday. We'll do something after them. Who do the Mavericks play next? Why can I not remember?
Don't they play Portland?
Yes.
Or am I wrong?
No, that is exactly who they play. Portland, who is playing the Spurs tonight, and they just got blanked by the Spurs. Shaden Sharp is going to be one that to watch against the San Antonio, or I'm sorry, Portland. But this is a Mavericks game. There, the Blazers have only won 3 games on the road, so let's not give them a fourth.
Yeah, I remember talking earlier in the season, like they're kind of like a bad team that's like plucky and feisty. I feel like since I made that comment, they are not.
Well, they beat Denver. They just beat Denver.
Just kidding.
No, well, yeah, well, and I'm glad we'll end on that note. Josh and I are not in a mental place to talk about the Tim Bontemps straw poll.
Yeah, it's 40 minutes into this podcast on a Saturday night after you've been taking care of a sick baby. Let's talk about the MVP race. Perfect timing.
I mean, my hot take was I was just like, Luka got 5th in the straw poll. Okay, that's something to build on. Like I was because in the NBA and like MVP ballot ladder post that comes out, he was like 8th. So it's so like, oh, okay, this is something to go for. Anyway, all right. We will be back on Monday night. Thanks so much for dealing with us. Hope you guys don't have to do too much work this week if you have to work. We got, just a few more days till Christmas here in the United States. And for anybody that celebrates around the world, we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and go Mavs.
Drinking and driving is a decision that could change your whole world. Things will never be the same if you ever get a DUI. Because legal fees and time in court are just the beginning. Getting into a crash is another way that your world can be turned upside down. Your vehicle may not be the only thing that gets damaged in that crash. You can face a life-altering injury or even death, but you're not the only one that can face those consequences. Your decision to drink and drive can permanently impact not just your world, but someone else's world as well. Whether you injure them or leave their loved ones grieving. The next time you're out drinking, call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or a designated sober driver. The only decision that will change your world for the better is the decision to call for a sober ride. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.